Hi folks, this is just a sort of quick review of central place theory for you. Essentially, in both geography and in archaeology, central place theory concerns the size and distribution of settlements, what we call central places, within a given landscape. Now, the primary purpose of a settlement or a market town, according to central place theory, is creating goods and services for the surrounding market area, which they call the hinterland. Such towns are centrally located and are called central places. As applied to archaeology, the theory states that human settlements are going to space themselves evenly across a landscape as a function of the availability of natural resources, communications and transportation routes, goods and services, and other factors. Eventually, these are going to evolve into a hierarchy of settlements of different size that depend on one another. Basically, central place theory attempts to illustrate how settlements are located in relation to one another, the amount of market area, that is to say goods and services, a central place can control, and why some central places function as villages, towns, or cities. This theory was first developed, as it says in the Blackboard page, by German geographer Walter Christaller. His theory concentrated on centers of a different order, since in a complex system there are going to be larger centers offering more specialized services to a wider area. Think about how you can get more goods and services, for example, in a city than you can in some podunk town. Right? That's the basic idea behind it. Now, this theory may also suggest ways in which different factors have affected settlement patterning. So this has found a lot of useful applications in archaeology as a result. And now let's take a look, first of all, at this diagram, which shows different cities, towns, market towns, and villages as they relate to central place theory. Note that you have the city in red, surrounded at its widest point by different towns in orange. Each of those towns and cities is surrounded by market towns in blue, and each of those market towns is surrounded by villages. So the idea of a hierarchy is that the larger a city, the more goods and services it's going to have, the larger its sphere of influence, the larger its hinterland is going to be. And that's going to sort of radiate out in this hexagonal-like pattern. Now the difference is that Christaller thought that this applied to a uniform landscape with no differences in natural resources or geography. Now let's take a look at how it might be applied in real life. Here we have a map of the ancient Indus River Valley civilization of Bronze Age India and Pakistan. And what we see here, which is really very interesting, is we can see how these smaller towns and communities of the Indus civilization in red are surrounding the larger cities, larger or more significant cities, such as those surrounding Harappa up here, Mohenjo-Daro down here, Desalpur down here, and Rangpur down here. So you can see we have these smaller communities surrounding the larger communities. However, we can see that there are a lot that don't basically fit this pattern of smaller towns surrounding larger towns. One of these that we see up here in the blue circle is we see basically this line of towns going all the way from Mehrgarh down to Sukhankandor. And the interesting thing here is that they follow this line because this is where we found the very early agricultural pre-Indus cultures. This is where there was a large swath of agricultural land available for development. We also see another similar line of smaller settlements here in between the cities of Chandhu-Daro and the two cities of Balakot and Malandino. Now, why do we see this line of towns? Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, just like the areas of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, all of these follow the basic line of the ancient Indus River, providing access to water for irrigation, trade up and down the river, fishing resources, etc. There's a larger concentration down here around Balakat, Chanhudaro, and Alandino, because all three of these towns, if we can see how it's present dry land, but in ancient times it was below sea level, you can see that all three of these towns, Chanhudaro, Alandino, and Balakat, were all originally coastal towns on the Arabian Sea, thus giving access to foreign trade. So we can see here how central place theory can be applied and how we can also apply on maps and GIS all of these different natural resources and distribution of natural resources and geography to try to figure out what economic activity and therefore social activity among these settlements was like.